Hey guys, sorry I couldn't be here. Just go ahead and take out your note packets. They are pink. We've been working with them for a while now. And go ahead and turn to page 5. Okay, we're going to do a little introduction for today's lesson on completing the square. So either filling out the notes or completing a worksheet, whatever your assignment is, this is going to be an introduction, and then we're going to pick up where we left off on Monday. Okay, so in order to be able to complete this square, we have to revisit what a perfect square trinomial is. So you can see in the examples in this box here that you can factor both of these trinomials like this and then write them in its most simplified form by putting the exponent of 2 there, because when you factor this trinomial, it's x plus 6 times x plus 6. So if you remember from Unit 7, you had to write it in its most simplified way. So in order to use completing the square, which is just another way to solve for solutions, so it's sometimes we use it in place of the quadratic formula or graphing or factoring if factoring is not possible. So in order to be able to complete the square, we need to know what perfect square trinomials are and how to write them. So first of all, determine if they are perfect square trinomials. The easiest way to do that is to go ahead and factor it. We factor the first one as x plus 5 times x plus 5. Would we say that's a perfect square trinomial? Yes, we would, because it's the exact same factor written twice. So how would you write it in its most simplified way? We would write the quantity x plus 5 all squared. Number 2, is it a perfect square trinomial? Let's see, how would you factor this? We know we'd go x and x, two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to 10. 4 and 4 doesn't work. We can use 8 and 2, and 8 and 2 we know are not the same numbers. So no, that one is not a perfect square trinomial. Moving on to example 3, if we factor this one into x and x, two numbers that multiply to 49 and add to negative 14. Has to be minus 7 and minus 7 to get the negative 14 in the middle. Again, we do see that these are the same factors, so we would write that in a more simplified way. The quantity x minus 7 squared. Alright, why is this so important? Well, when we get down to solving, you're going to have to write your perfect square trinomials like this. So the actual process of completing the square. How do we do it? Well, you're going to start with the first term and the second term, the a term and the b term. You have to find the c value. So how we find the c value is we take the b value, divide it by 2, and then we square it. So first do what's inside those parentheses, and then you square it. Then you'll be asked to write the perfect square trinomial as a binomial squared, which we see right here in this box. This is a binomial squared. So it's all about finding that c value. So we're going to look at a few examples where we have to find the c value, write the perfect square trinomial, and then rewrite it as a binomial squared. So let's start with how you find the c value. Remember, the c value, it's the b value. So remember a, b, and c. So b is 4 divided by 2, because that's what the pattern says, and then we square it. So inside those parentheses, 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. If we rewrote this based on our problem there, x squared plus 4x plus 4, you have to write it or rewrite it as a binomial squared. So remember, you take this value that was in the parentheses and rewrite it as x plus 2, the quantity squared. Okay, so the number that goes here, when you're rewriting it, you're always going to see the exact same number in those parentheses when you're finding the c value. Let's try it again for number 5. Find the c value. It's the b value, take the negative sign with it, divide it by 2, and then squared. Negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9. Negative 9 squared is 81. If you do not use parentheses in your calculator, it will tell you it's negative. But you need to know that any negative number squared is positive. You should know that. If you have to remind yourself, please do. So let's rewrite our trinomial with our c value we just found, which was 81. And now we have to rewrite it as a binomial. You're just factoring it. So if you're not sure again how we got this example in number 4, if you factored this, your only way to factor it would be x minus 9 times x minus 9. So its most simplified form would be the quantity x minus 9 all squared. Again, you don't have to go through the problem of factoring it if you just remember to look up at how you got c. You see this negative 9 here was already in those parentheses. That will work every time. For number 6, find the c value. It's the b value divided by 2 all squared. Now when you're squaring a fraction, remember, square the top number, square the bottom number. So we have 25 over 4. It is a fraction or decimal. I'd leave it as a fraction. It's a little bit neater, and it's okay to get fractions. So how do we rewrite this? Remember, whichever number is in those parentheses is the number that we write when we're writing our binomial squared. So you do have to remember that there is a big difference between the c value and the number that goes in the parentheses when you're rewriting it as a binomial squared. All right, go ahead and turn the page, and we're going to move on to example number 7. Solve the following quadratic equations by completing the square. Verify your solutions by plugging them back into the original equation. So we're solving, which means we're finding what x equals. You're going to find that this method is similar to the square root method, which we did earlier in this unit. So the first thing we need to do is complete the square, which means just like on the other page, we have to find that c value. So there's not even a room for the c value, and no, negative 7 is not the c value. So let's rewrite it and leave a little spot there for c. So again, we have to find the c value. How do we do that? The b value divided by 2 and then square it. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So our trinomial is x squared plus 8x plus 16. Now, in order to keep this balanced, if you're putting a 16 on the left side of the equation, you also have to put it on the other. By putting it on the other, I mean you have to add it to the other side as well. So add 16, and we get a 9 on the right-hand side of the equation. So remember, if you're adding to one side, you add to the other. And then let's rewrite this as a binomial squared. So look at that number inside those parentheses. This would be x plus 4, the quantity squared. Now this takes you right back to the square root method. How do you get x by itself? If we're solving for it and there's a little squared there, you have to undo the squared by taking the square root of both sides. That gives us x plus 4 on the left-hand side, the square root of 9. Don't just say 3. You know there's two answers since we're solving an equation. It's positive or negative 3, which means we have two answers to solve for. X plus 4 equals positive 3, and x plus 4 equals negative 3. Subtract 4 from both sides. We get x is negative 1, and we get x is negative 7. Now, if you go back to the original directions, the second sentence said verify your solutions by plugging them back in. Verify is just a fancy word for checking your answers. So if we go back and plug in negative 1 into the equation, does it end up equaling negative 7? Negative 1 squared plus 8 times negative 1. Does it equal negative 7? Negative number squared is positive. 1 minus 8 is negative 7. So yes, that one's good. If we go and plug in negative 7 squared minus 8, that's plus 8 times negative 7. Does that equal another negative 7? So we have positive 49 minus 56. Does that equal negative 7? Yes, it does. All right, and one example left. Moving on to number 8. In the last example, we had a number on the other side of the equal sign, which was fine. We don't want any other additional numbers on the left-hand side because we're trying to complete the square. So how do we move a negative 5 to the other side? We add 5. And our new equation becomes x squared plus 4x plus, I'm going to leave a line for our c value, equals 5. So we have to figure out what's c. Remember the trick. The b value divided by 2 squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So we're going to add a 4 in there. What you add to one side, you have to add to the other. This gives us our new equation, which ironically equals 9 again. Will not always equal 9. And we should rewrite the left side of the equation. Rewrite it again as a binomial squared. So this is x plus 2 squared. How do you solve for x from here? We square root both sides. We get x plus 2 equals, once again, positive or negative 3. Two equations, x plus 2 equals 3, and x plus 2 equals negative 3. Two answers. X equals 1, x equals negative 5. Again, you could go ahead and verify those answers and plug them back in. Okay, I want you guys to take a few quick seconds here and pause this. Go ahead and try 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then go ahead and hit play once you're ready, or if you feel like maybe you're stumped. I'm not going to walk you through the other ones. I'll just have the answers up here. So please pause it at this time. Try it on your own. Ask around if you're a little confused, or ask the sub for help. Here are the answers to 9, 10, and 11. Hopefully we're doing all right. And then I will walk you through number 12 right now. Again, if you need to pause at any time to try it on your own or just go back and find where you made a mistake, please feel free. Okay, so number 12, solve the quadratic equations by, by completing the square. Verify your solution. All right, so we need to complete the square, which means we need to figure out what this c value is. What goes here? Well, there was a negative 24 there. We need to move that to the other side of the equation. So instead of it saying equals 0, it's going to say equals 24 because we added it over. Now, find the c value that goes there. Give you plenty of room here. The b value divided by 2, square it. What's inside those parentheses? A 5. We square it. That gives us 25. So if we are completing the square on the left side and adding a 25 in, we need to add 25 to the other side. We now have on the right side that it equals 49, which is wonderful since we can square root 49 and get a whole number. Remember, you want to rewrite the left side as a binomial squared. So use that value we found in the parentheses for c, rewrite it, x plus 5 quantity squared. Now we just solve for x. How do we solve for x? We take the square root of both sides. So we square root x plus 5 squared, and we square root 49. When you square root a number in an equation, you get two solutions. We have x plus 5 equals positive and negative 7. So x plus 5 equals 7. X plus 5 equals negative 7. After you subtract 5 from both sides, we get 2 as one answer, and we get negative 12 as our other answer. You could go back and plug it in to check. I'm running out of time, so make sure you do complete these for your homework and get the other worksheet done. I'll see you guys Monday.